You're listening to Crazy Shit in Real Estate. You'll be amazed at all these wild but true situations that others have found themselves in. Because on this show, you'll hear uncensored, unbelievable stories from the world of real estate. I'm Leigh Brown. Let's dive right in.
I'm Leigh Brown. This is Crazy Shit in Real Estate. And today I've got Eric J. Barth with us from Northern Kentucky to talk a little bit about appraisal life, real estate life, and how they can even work together. So I hope you'll enjoy this conversation. I'll see you on the other side.
How are you?
Good. I hope you are.
I am fantastic.
Well, thank you for coming to visit all the way from Northern Kentucky. So you the Florence kind of area?
Yeah, I saw you. I believe it was 3 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago. You came up to, Florence Erlanger area, and you were injured.
Probably was. I mean, I wear a boot every couple years.
Yeah, you had the boot on, and I can't. I don't remember what you had. If you had an Achilles, maybe, I don't know what it was, but
no,
yeah.
It would have been. I broke my fifth metatarsal in 2021, so that was my last big running injury. So I just keep the boot under my bed because prior to that, I had a broken ankle, and I've had all manner of issues going on. But here we are.
Yeah, I'm a runner, and former now. I got bad hip injury, so that's where I'm at now. So that's not a boot.
That'll take you out.
Yeah, it has. So, yeah.
But you can still swim, right? Because my ortho keeps telling me I should start being a swimmer, and I say that's not happening anytime soon, so I don't want to.
Well, right. I can swim, and I do swim, but it's it's not good. I sink like a rock. I'm terrible at it. So.
Well, it's a whole different oxygen thing. That's what drives me nuts. Like I can run a marathon, but I swim 2 laps, and I'm like,
I know it. I know. Yeah, but I should have. A good friend of mine, he was, he still does. He's done several Ironmans and stuff, and we train for marathons and do all that fun stuff. But his deal was he would always run 4 days a week, where I was running like literally, I ran 40 plus miles a week for 22 straight years. And, there were a couple years in there where I had over 3,000 miles of running in, and that's probably but he never did that, but he always had really good times, but he would swim, he would bike, he mixed it up a little bit. So
was that Scott Pinella? Cause he's my friend in Kentucky that does Ironmans.
No, that's a guy named Jerry Bricking. Yeah.
I don't know Jerry. Do you know Scott Pinella? He's over Louisville market.
Yeah, no, I know the name, but it's about 100 miles due southwest of me. So.
Well, he's a very nice man. His wife, Meg, is very nice. They got a whole bunch of kids and good real estate agents. So I had to ask,
Yeah. No, that name is really familiar, but no.
So tell our listeners, how long you've been in and around real estate and appraising, and give them a little bit of a picture of who Eric Barth is.
I was licensed as a real estate agent way back in 2001. In 2001, I went past a real estate. I went to college, Northern Kentucky University, to be a history teacher, and I was going to be a football coach. Okay. So then I decided that I probably, looking into the future, didn't want to be spending time coaching everyone else's kids. While that sounds a little maybe selfish at the time, but I wasn't married at the time, didn't have any kids. I just thought, well, I got to get something different. And some work that I was doing landscaping, a guy was a general certified appraiser, which I really did not know anything about the appraising business. Well, long and short of it is I got licensed in 2001 as a real estate agent, had zero clue what to do or how to sell real estate in 2001 once I passed that test. Basically, you learn how to stay out of trouble, but really didn't know how to communicate with anybody or know anyone. And so the general certified appraiser, going back to the running stuff, I was meeting up with a running group. I started meeting with these guys back in November of 2000. And I had run my first marathon, the Cincinnati Flying Pig. Had never run further than 14 miles before I ran that race. Went out and ran it completely, ran like 3 hours and 52 minutes or something. And then
we can't be friends.
I ended up going, but
Ryan, and you were sub 4?
What's that?
You weren't even trying and you were sub 4.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I've been sub 250 before too. So I got to that. So that was always fun, but that's neither here nor there. But how I got into real estate was because of running, really. And doing work at this guy's house. But so I ran that and they said, hey, why don't you start meeting with our running group? And this is back, I'm landscaping guy, and I'm meeting with guys who own real estate businesses, guys who are vice presidents of big companies in Cincinnati and that kind of thing. I was completely out of my element, really. And the only thing that I had going is I was a high school football player and kind of known around there with a few of these guys. They said, "Oh, this guy's a runner now." Well, that kind of thing. So anyway, we run the Flying Pig a year after I'd run that first one. And me and the guy who was the general certified appraiser, we ran 2 hours and 58 minutes, a marathon. We ran it together and kind of finished going toe to toe. Well, the next day, I just happened to have his office in his house on my deal for landscaping maintenance stuff. And so I took a crew, and I was there at 7:30 in the morning the next day after running that 26.2 miles. And I had my crew. I was out driving a tractor, loading mulch, all that kind of fun stuff. And I get to the house. This is this is '02, I guess. That's '01 or '02. '01, I think this was. But anyway, he comes out and he says, "I can't believe you're out here." He goes, "I can barely walk today." And I said, "I've got to make money, man. This is what I do." And I was a little bit younger than him, though, probably about 10 years younger than him. But I said, so then he says, "Hey, I had an appraiser leave my office." And he says, in fact, you spoke of Louisville. He moved to Louisville, Kentucky, so he's out of the area. He goes, "You told me you had your real estate license. Do you have any interest in appraising?" And I'm like, "Well, I really have no clue on what appraising is." So at the time in the state of Kentucky, you had to have, I think it was 2,000 hours or 2 years under a general certified in like an apprenticeship. And so that's how I got into the business. Now, the craziness started. I really didn't sell any real estate from really 2001 when I got my license. I started doing the appraisals in '02. I did appraisals all the way up to 2015. So for 13 years, I did those. So lived through that fun time of '07 and '08. And I've listened to enough of your podcast and followed you a bit. So I know you've been in the business during that point in time too. And so you saw that that fun stuff. Well, anyway, my income dropped to the appraising business about 75%, in that '07, '08, '09 area, maybe a year and a half. It fell off really hard. And like I said, I would sell a couple houses here or there, but it mainly be some buyers. And I said, I really need to figure out how to go sell real estate. So I went to some seminars on how to get leads and all that kind of fun stuff. And so sure enough, I find out how to get leads, and I end up, this guy, his name was Key Yasad. And I just went to this and I learned how to get a cryptid thing. So I got a website. And it's ericjbarth.com. Still is. It was iHouse Elite. I was trying to get, and I would blog and do things like that. And I also had a way that I could get a code into, at the time, this was back in '08, into Craigslist. And so for my little municipalities all around, I'm in greater Cincinnati. So I'm in northern Kentucky, but we have about 46 little specific municipalities right around Cincinnati area. And so I would just take these little things. So say, for instance, my hometown is Fort Thomas, Kentucky. Literally off my back deck, I can see the city of Cincinnati. So anyway, I would write Fort Thomas homes under 300,000. And all of a sudden I get all these people, they started clicking on my website, and I'm getting like 25, 30,000 views per month, by doing this. But it was literally me behind the background doing, at the time, 300 plus real estate appraisals a year. The appraisals were going to be for mortgages, refinances. We had a lot of attorney work that we did for the 3Ds, death, divorce, and debt, all that kind of fun stuff. And I was like, oh my heavens, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I kind of mucked through that for a little bit. And occasionally I would do some appraisals for realtors around the area, because I would meet people in continuing educations. And I have the personality anyway of like, I like to get in difficult conversations, go meet with different people. Just I'm very involved in the community as well, all that kind of fun stuff. So anyway, there were a few agents that I would meet, and they would occasionally have me come and do an appraisal on, let's just say they had a difficult listing that they had, trying to get a price down. They might call me and say, "Hey, Eric, I'm over at this place. This seller thinks their house is worth $500,000. My comps everything's at 400. She'd pay me $350. I'd come out and knock that out. And, they would get their commission on, say, $500,000. Well, it really hit me hard though in my hometown. because a guy who owned a lot of property, I did some landscaping work on some of his properties on the side years ago. And he knew I was out of that business and was doing real estate appraisals. So in my town where I was more known as just an appraiser. And his parents had passed away and they were settling in an estate. So it was nothing abnormal. He says, hey, can you come down here? An attorney wants an appraisal. I'm going to divide this up with the family. I said, okay. Well, one of these agents calls me, this is about a week or two later, and says, Eric, I'm in your neck of the woods. And by the way, this lady had built a really nice team with, she was at a Keller Williams office. She built a really nice team and been trying to recruit me to come over to Keller Williams. I'm like, look, I'm an appraiser. I'm in a little brokerage here. I'm just not doing it. But she had come from the DC area and moved here. Her husband was, I think, in the FBI or something, got transferred into Cincinnati. And she built a really nice team, was doing a good business. But at the time, I really didn't have a ton of respect for realtors, even though I had a real estate license. And the reason why is because I would look back, almost all of my conversations I would have with realtors were adversarial. And what I mean by that is, as an appraiser, so it wasn't like I had a ton of conversations with them, but so many of them were, hey, and it was like, you guys don't show your show your work. A lot of you folks, this was my opinion at the time. But that wasn't necessarily with her. So anyway, this lady calls me. Her name is Michelle. She says, Eric, I'm going to be listing a property literally almost in your backyard. She goes, you know the Newman brothers? And I'm like, oh my goodness. And she was going to list that thing. She goes, yeah, they said you did an appraisal on it. And she was just trying to get some intel about the community. Like I was telling you, she wasn't from around here, getting some intel, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And that was back in 2015. So I called this agent. My mentality switched a little bit. Instead of questioning people getting things done, go ask them questions. And so in 2015, I joined a real estate team. And then that was a good thing for me. So I hated it for the 3 years. I was like, how am I going to get out of this? Another difficult conversation. Wouldn't say I hated it. I learned so much, but I learned. That's what I did.
It wasn't where you belonged long term.
Wasn't where I belong long term. Thank you for helping me articulate that. So yeah, it wasn't, but it was such a blessing and such a great thing. And in fact, it changed my life, because, working 70 to 80 hours a week like a madman, running buyers around and doing 300 appraisals is craziness. And, I've said the road to hell is paved with good intentions sometimes. So, and it's like you kind of lose your mind. Time, married, kids, all that kind of fun stuff, and trying to coach sports and, being members of, the business association. I have a BNI that I run. I do all kinds of stuff. So anyway, it was time for me to, and so it changed my life. And so that's kind of the fun story of where I am now. There's a lot more to it, but.
So since my audience is partially real estate people and partially consumers who are just kind of interested in our space, let's break down on the difference in an appraiser and a certified appraiser, because I find that a lot of people do not understand the difference and why it makes a difference to the final product even.
Well, the general certified appraiser, there's a little more work behind that, but also they can do commercial stuff anywhere that they want to do it. And that's the biggest difference. But the appraiser wise, there's a lot more involved with the general certified than just the regular appraiser. But I would tell you most of the time in a real estate transaction, whenever you're dealing, I'm assuming that a lot of folks here are more residential stuff than they are commercial on that. I'm just gathering that. But geographic competence means everything. And so if you are not, in Cincinnati area here where I'm at, I had, there's a little town, Newport, Kentucky. It is right across the river you can see the Cincinnati Reds Stadium, like inside of it from this place. Okay. And it's kind of a urban field town. But it's got historic districts. Every little street is different. There's the houses up on the hill. There's the houses down on the lower base, and there's all different economic neighborhood characteristics. Well, I'm selling a house over there. And, and then the last thing I expected was to have an appraisal issue on value on this thing. And the next thing you know, I'm getting a phone call from the lender saying, hey, we got an issue on this value. And I was like, what? So I look up the appraiser, and he's from north of Dayton, Ohio, who had come down to do this. Well, part of the deal was it was a VA. So there's fewer VA appraisers out there, VA, people that are qualified to do that. So it's a smaller pool. But again, I don't think this guy was completely. So again, though, I'm not just having an adversarial conversation. It's not that I'm not getting something that I don't want. I know how to communicate with that appraiser and say, hey, look, did you consider X, Y, and Z? There were literally two beautiful comps on the same street. The guy didn't even look at. I'm questioning if he even had access to our MLS. You know what I mean? I don't even know how competent we were with that. He was just on the thing. So we got the value back to where it needed to be. What the arms, not where it needed to be, but where the arm's length, where the contract price was. So,
come back. You never answered my question. What's the difference in appraiser and certified?
Oh, it's more education. And then the certified, though, is going to allow you to bring on appraisers, the regular like apprenticeship.
The certified is going to be your head appraiser with more experience, more transactions, more education.
More education. And then they're also allowed to do the commercial stuff. That's the biggest thing. So if you're wanting to do strip malls and that kind of stuff. So if you're just a fee appraiser, you're not going to be doing the commercial stuff. The biggest difference going to be you're not going to be doing commercial stuff over 4 family houses. So you could do 2 to 4 families, single family residential houses. But that general certified, they have more education, they have everything, but they can do all the commercial. That's the biggest difference.
If you're a homeowner and you're looking for a value on your house, are you better off with the certified than an appraiser?
I wouldn't say you're better off. No, because what you'll find too, what I find with some of this general certified appraisers is they aren't actually out in the field all the time. They have the other appraisers that are out there in the mix all the time. Right. So I wouldn't necessarily say that. It's just more of it'd be like, do I feel what I feel? Hopefully my broker wouldn't be upset if I said this, but would I feel better if my broker were out, taking people, showing them houses and listing houses? Probably. They're not in the thick of everything all the time,
Well, but I'll take umbrage to that because I'm a selling broker. So
well, that's different though. Yes. That's different.
And I'm 25 years in. So if you give 1-year agent, I can run circles around them, even if
absolutely
property every day because my depth of knowledge.
Sure.
That's what I was going with the certified appraiser because we have one appraiser here in my county who's been in the business 30 years, but he's never gotten certified.
Oh, that's no. See, I don't think that's. I would trust him to do that. I think all day and all night.
But that's a big jump you're making to trust somebody. But you don't know anything about the reputation too, because 30 years could mean 1 year's experience times 30 instead of 30 years of deciding to get better at the business.
That's true. But I would also look at what would be the volume of appraisals this person does? What are the types of, it depends on what building it is. If I have somebody that says, hey, I have a gas station down here with a grocery store attached to it, can you do this appraiser? Frank, I'm going to say no. I'm not going to.
It's a whole different game.
Yeah, I've maybe done 2 of those. But when I did 13 years of appraisals, probably, other than that really stretch of 07, 08, that I wasn't doing 300 then, but I was pretty much doing 300 real estate appraisals a year. And most, 99% of them were single family houses, condos. Where am I getting, just knowing the area. Now, just because somebody didn't have the, that extra certification, I wouldn't look into too much of that at all. I'd want to know how many appraisals they've done maybe in that area. What do they know? I mean, do they actually know what's going on here? The people, years ago, what was it? I think it was 1989, which is before my time. There was no licensing for appraisers.
Oh,
at all.
There was not.
There was not. And then when there was a savings and loan crisis that happened, and then after that, that is when they made all appraisers get licensed, and that nobody was grandfathered in. So that got a lot of folks out of it, and then you hit all the new folks in. Now,
I for the savings and loan crisis, because my dad was in real estate at that time, and so we went through a pretty challenging time in our household in the 80s when that went down. But I didn't realize that was when appraisers had to get licensed. I have to check Carolina's history and see if we did at the same time as Kentucky did. Probably did.
I'm betting you probably did. I don't know if it was like I said, that was before my time. I would have still been in high school in 1989. So, and my folks weren't in the real estate business. But what I found though, from even with the, I'll tell you, if you want to get into, I'll tell you crazy thing. So when I first got into the appraisal business, what I thought was the craziest thing. So '02 up until about '07. So for the first 5 years, for a while, in my office, we had a few appraisers, and at the time I was the junior. And so they were sending me out to Timbuktu all the time, which was fine. Right. Which was fine. But at the time there might be, say, Eric, there's 2 purchases coming in, about 30 minutes away from our office. And can you go out there into Boone County? And I was over in Campbell County. There's 2 purchases out in Boone. But then they had these drive-by appraisals that we would do. Okay, and the drive-by appraisals weren't even on 1004 forms or 2055s. They were on a thing at the time were restricted forms, and all the drive-bys were for these on these restricted forms were for HELOCs, home equity line of credit. And so you would go out there, and it would just say Leigh says her house is worth $400,000. They would not ask me to put a value on it. They'd ask me to check a box, yes or no.
Go look at it and see if it looks like 400.
Go look at it. I would they wanted a picture of the front of the place and of the street. And this was a very big bank. They did tons of these things. And then I would come back into the office and they'd say, okay, well, here's how it would work though. You'd go out, there's 2 purchases. You'd roll out there and you'd, do your walkthroughs, measure the houses, take interior photos, do all that kind of stuff. And then you do 5 or 6 drive-bys. And you would do 5 or 6 of these drive-bys and they'd pay you like $75 a piece for them. And I'd have everything in. So the 2 walkthroughs, all the drive-bys in by the end of the day and just churning them over like this. And I just thought, this is not sustainable. This is insane. Now, if you checked no on there, then you might have a loan officer calling you, griping at you, going, what are you doing on this? Now that would be, that's one. Then 2 would also be, then they would order a lot of times a walkthrough. And I'd be like, how would I know what on earth, you take a look at the tax record and say, okay, they bought this place 5 years ago for X amount of money. They said they did, but it was literally a check, yes or no. It was now after '08, that all disappeared. That was completely gone. Yeah, it's gone. And it's, as far as I know, it's gone today. I would hope so, because it was ridiculous.
So if you're in real estate and you're listening to this podcast or watching it and thinking, man, I need some more Leigh Brown answers in my life. Well, guess what, friends? I have a new program that is launching right now called Answers.Realestate, where I will give you every bit of insight I have to help you grow your real estate business, help you better respond to consumers, to provide a more excellent real estate experience, so that the next time you land on crazy shit in real estate, you'll have a better solution to whatever you ran into. Answers.Realestate. There are monthly plans available. You will love it. Get your coaching. Sign up with me today.
Anyway, so that was, if you want to talk about crazy stuff in real estate, I was like, this is not sustainable. But then you know what happened. It was 180 degrees where no one could get money. And then that really caused an issue with the real estate market. That's not where we are now. I'm not sure about your neighborhood there, but in ours, it's always, we're trying to get more houses out. Our inventory is always a little bit light here.
We're behind on building by many years and all over the country. But, the drive-by appraisals might be gone, but now they have desktop appraisals. And I have so many issues with everything going automated with these automated valuation models. I don't want to see appraisals get replaced by computer programs, because I don't think it's necessarily any more accurate than a drive-by, because you can't get a full scale of it from the internet like you can from your car.
Well, to your point, it's like, absolutely not. But where we live, it's a mix of, the last house I just sold was built in 1875. Gives you an idea, right? So there's old stuff here, and I'm sure there are in your area. But then we also have brand new suburbs and all of this kind of thing. But if we have those tract homes that are out in the suburbs that are built, I'm not saying AVMs are good, but they can be a little more accurate. But, and say, for instance, a town I live in, you have a house.
Eric, I'm challenged on that, because you've been in houses that are owned by cat people.
Oh, absolutely. And
the ATMs can't accommodate for conditions.
No, they can't. But I didn't say that. I do not. I think they're total garbage.
We'll give them a range.
Yeah.
On an older home, it's harder to give it a range. So I'll give them that, but I won't give them accuracy.
No, but
credit.
even the AVMs, my point is the AVM does not take into account, like, say, for instance, where I live in my town, you'll have a newer home that's built in an infill lot, or there was a home that was torn down. And then you have,
That's a hard one to value.
yeah, and then you have a home that's built in 1900 and another one that was built mid-century, 1968 or something like that. They're all different values. You're going to have stuff that's anywhere between 250 to $2 million. And it's all within this little condensed area. And so a computer's not going to pick up on all those nuances.
Okay, so in that example, because we are seeing the infill lots are an opportunity in towns across the country as we're always looking for solutions to housing. So you have an empty lot that the lady next door just had it for years as a buffer, or the house fell down, whatever. So they go in and build a new house, and everything else on the street is from the 1950s. Let's just call it a mid-century neighborhood. What kind of adjustment do you make for that, provided the beds, baths, and square footage are in line, but one's 70 years younger than the other ones? How do you accommodate for that?
Well, on that, you're going to, there's three different ways to come to value. You have the sales comparison approach. You're going to have the cost approach and an income approach. Well, income's not going to really apply to that at all, but the cost approach, you're going to give that some weight. And that all you're doing is communicating with the underwriter and giving your best possible scenario. And if you don't have that information, you might have to go back and just dig up some old, maybe a little bit older sales, and then just say, okay, well, it's been a while since I've done an appraisal, but it's even like thinking in your head, how am I going to price a house now? Right. And it's like, okay, well, let's take a look at what the place did cost. I'm thinking about in my neighborhood in the past 5 years, I was just doing numbers. The median sale price, single family houses is up 34.4%, and you're not going to go just 34.4% up. Let's just say it's a 5-year-old house and you're in a neighborhood with 75-year-old houses. But there's ways that, that's in general, but it's not an exact science. It's an opinion of value. And, and that's why, though, within real estate wise, I've had people call me up. I had a gentleman call me last week. He's in his upper 80s. In fact, I sold my biggest sale that I ever had, several years ago. Him and his wife never had any kids. And, a gift for that was he gave me his seat licenses to his University of Kentucky basketball down at 10th Row at Rupp Arena. So I'm a big Kentucky fan. So that's all good. Yeah, that's a good. I have to pay for him every year, but I got 10th Row at Rupp, so that's always fun. I know you're in North Carolina. You probably don't like Kentucky, but that's all right.
I don't have any use for Kentucky, but I hate Duke more. So
all right. Well, we don't like Duke at all. We always say you can't spell Duke without UK. But anyway, my point was he had called me and he said that his wife was not doing well. She was in a home and he's in his upper 80s. And he says, I'm not feeling, and I need an appraisal on my house. And I said, well, do you need an actual appraisal? I can get you connected with an appraiser, or do you just need to know what the general value of your house is? And he goes, oh, I just, so it wasn't anything legal. So I went over there and, I'm not charging him anything for that. And I'll probably end up selling the house for him when it comes that time. But, I give a range of value of what we think it's going to be worth. I like to, just like today, I think there's more value. And as long as like yourself, like you said, you've been in the business a long time. And it's not just a long time, but you've done your due diligence over time. And so I like to find out, well, how many actives, how many pendings, where's the market trending, to see how many showings are happening for properties in your price point. What's the percentage of houses in your price point that have sold in this market over the past year? All those fun little things which are prepped for him, which is way more detailed than an appraisal, in my opinion. Now, the appraisal is just for the bank. And what the appraisal work did is give me a ton of, it helped me understand all the little areas in my marketplace so much better, other than just the process of selling real estate. Because I think, as a realtor, digging deep into it, I think we can provide a ton of value for folks like that anyway.
So then what is the piece of information that you think more practicing realtors should pay attention to, that appraisers are paying attention to, that would help bridge those gaps? Because as you said, we're looking at the property in two different viewpoints. The realtor's saying, how do I get it sold? The appraiser's opinion of value, all these different inputs. What inputs should realtors be paying attention to?
Well, I'm going to say for my folks, it's all about setting expectations, as I'm sure that you know that. So setting expectations with your clients. And for me to say, if we get a number, let's just say we have 10 offers come in and we get multiple offers and we get way over the list price, right? And it's like, wow, I don't even know if that's going to appraise out. Well, I don't know if it's necessarily an appraiser doesn't know what he's talking about. He's going to do what his job is. My job, though, also is going to be to communicate what the expectations are with my seller. Go, look, this could become a problem up the road here. Now, if I have all my ducks in a row and know what the comps are, what the neighborhood what street, what neighborhood characteristics are in each little community, I'm never going to really be sweating, if I'm going to have an issue with an appraiser. I don't like having those tough conversations. What's that?
Come back. You like to go tell me a story when I ask you a question. Come back here, realtor, appraiser man. What data point should realtors be using that they're not using right now?
Oh, I don't know what data point that somebody wouldn't be using. I know what I use. I have no idea what other folks are using and aren't using.
Probably do, though, because aren't you in competitive situations for listings? Do you find out that you're providing something the seller had not heard before?
For me, yeah. For me, it's setting the expectation up front. Literally, I'll be able to show my folks like how many showings have happened for properties in the neighborhood per price range. I'll break it down into $50,000. So how many homes have been shown? Let's say there's 75 showings have happened in our neighborhood in the past 30 days. And look here, there's the bulk of them are between 300 and 350,000. We have, several houses over 500,000, but I've shown like I don't know if there's a lot of buyers out here right now for these things. Just using that as an example. Well, I have that data that I can pull, and any realtor in my local area can pull that. I also
showing time.
Yeah, I just use the showing time. Yeah, showing time data to pull that up.
See, that wasn't so hard. You're trying not to answer my question. It's available to all members of the thing in the showing time, but many aren't doing it. And so if you're a practitioner who's watching this or listening to this, make sure that you're finding out additional sources of information that can help set expectations, because you're 100% right, Eric. Our job is to set expectations and help people plan ahead for the process. And the point I'm trying to drive home is that the data is available if we will go find it. And that means if you're a consumer who's watching and listening to this, these are some things you should ask when you're interviewing agents. Are they going to the data to tell you what your expectations should be on the number of times strangers have to come in your house and how long it's going to take for it to sell? I find that sellers are wildly uneducated on days on market right now, and they should be, because that's changed a lot over the past 5 years.
Yeah. So just for instance, it's even knowing that when you do go live with a listing, I mean, just to me, it's basic information, but it's like, where do we sit now with the actives that are out there? Where are we priced? Are we the highest one out there in this price point? Are we in the middle? Are we the lowest? Where are we at? But I also like to think about too, whenever I look at price points and I look at the data with the showing time to know how many, I break it down into $50,000 increments. And the reason that I do that is most folks in portals are looking in $50,000 increments most of the time, based on what information that my experience and coaching stuff that I look at. And so for me, let's just say, for instance, I remember a listing I had, just as for easy math, but it was, I thought the property was probably going to sell in the 360s. Okay. In the 360s. But I was like, well, where are we going to list this? I saw how many properties were on the market that would be competition with us. How many were pending? So where are we trending? How many have people are actually out there looking for these things now? Where are we at? So in my head, I'm telling my folks, I think we're going to sell in the 360s. I want to list this at 350. Not with 349.9, not 360. I want to go 350 because I want to get the guys looking 3 to 350 on their portals, and I want the 350 to 4s. So what ended up happening on that particular listing, we end up getting 8 offers, I think 30 showings or something in 3 days, 8 offers, and we end up getting 400 for it.
Oh, how'd that appraise when it's supposed to be in the 360s? How'd you get it to appraise? Did they waive appraisal?
They did not waive the appraisal. It was a smaller neighborhood. I actually was quite shocked, but we made it through. There were a few little, when I told you, since in this greater Cincinnati area, I'm in northern Kentucky, there's over 40 municipalities, but there's a few of them that are so tight. It's like, well, what, but the school district could be a little bit different. There could be a county. This is an independent school district, but most of the kids that live in this area go to a private school. There's all these little things that you need to know. But I looked at the appraisal and they had, because I asked the lender, hey, we all good? Yeah, man, we're fantastic. They had some things on there I was scratching my head about, but it worked out for us. And yeah, so we got it at 4. But I was thinking 360, but my folks, obviously they were pretty happy.
A little bit.
It doesn't always work out like that, but it does. But usually, if you catch the wave, and I lost out on multiple offers on a house this morning, out in a little bit of a town. But my guys, they put their best foot forward, and it just didn't work out. So
It's not an exact science, and that's why we do need to have, as you started off with, the good relationships between appraisers and realtors, so we can figure out how do we make it through when the information's all over the place.
Yeah. Right. And then the key is, I think for agents too, is to have your data just ready to go. I base this on X. And so then whenever you have that, it's not like you're attacking someone, you're just saying, I have this data and here's what we came up with. And usually that you don't want to attack somebody. I hate to say ego gets involved, but it does. It does. And then, so if you just have that conversation, but it's not like I have that many conversations. And usually the adversarial ones are the folks that aren't equipped to have conversations. How about that? That's what it is.
Very true.
Yeah. So that's what it is.
It has nothing to do with the length of time in the business and everything to do with your attitude about how to go gather information. So, Eric, if anybody wants to talk to you about Northern Kentucky real estate or the Cincinnati general metro market, real estate, appraisal side, all those fun things, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
You can contact me on my cell number. That's 859-912-2104. And then I'm also ericjbarth.com.
Which you've had for a long time. And of course,
been a while.
Eric's contact information is in the show notes for this episode. So if you were unable to jot it down when he said it, never fear. Go to the show notes and give him a quick ring with all of your greater Cincinnati needs. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's a fun to have a different perspective, and especially when you have two perspectives coming to the table.
Hey, I appreciate you. I watch you all the time, and I enjoy your stuff and get a lot out of it. So thank you.
Well, I'm glad that you participated in the fun, and all you viewers and listeners, say something nice about Eric in the comments, or you can ask him a question and he can come back and answer those. Hit the bell to subscribe and come back and see us next time.
By the way, friends, don't miss my brand new coaching program at answers.realestate, where you can have access to Leigh Brown, submit your questions, have them answered, meet like-minded professionals, have an entire library to help you build your business no matter what happens in the market. Get signed up today. I promise you'll be glad you did.